Wow. When I decided to change careers to pursue my love of psychology and neuroscience, I dreamed of speaking at conferences just like this, attended by some of the top researchers in my field at some of the world's most prestigious universities. However, not once in any of those dreams did I begin my talk with a slide of my entire posterior. My name is Jennifer Stevenson. I am a researcher. I am an instructor of psychology. I am a synaesthete. And I am beyond thrilled to be here with you today to share my experience. So you might be wondering, why then, Jennifer, did you begin your talk with a slide of your entire posterior? I'm a time-space synaesthete. The summer months, the summer months are here, but the months of the year are around me at all times. I can see them, I can feel them. But here's the catch. You can't see my calendar if I'm looking at you. It can only be viewed from my perspective. Beginning in January, my calendar runs clockwise. You can see that all of the winter months in Canada anyway are all kind of small, and the summer months are literally behind me. I never change position in my calendar, although I can turn around if I need to look at July or August. I found out I was a synaesthete in October of 2012, when I was 29 years old. And before we start engaging in the mental gymnastics required for that age calculation, why don't I tell you how I found out? You see, I've always been interested in psychology, in cognition, perception, and in memory. And I used to consume all of the media associated with these topics, especially memory. This was very interesting to me because I've had an outstanding memory since I was a kid. In particular, memory for things like license plates, for birth dates, for phone numbers, and for dates in general. So much so that my friends and coworkers used to affectionately, I think, refer to me as Rain Man. I have numbers floating around my brain at all times. I also have an outstanding memory for autobiographical details. So when I saw that there was a program coming on, William Shatner's Weird or What, that was about people with outstanding memories, I knew I had to watch because that was about me. The individuals were introduced as having savant-like memory capabilities, and the researchers thought that it was because they all had this one thing in common. They could see the months of the year around their bodies at all times. Well, none of this was very exciting to me because, of course, we can all see the months of the year around us at all times. This is boring. I've just wasted my time. However, as the program went on, I realized this is not normal. My experience is atypical. I was excited. I was dumbfounded because I had gone through 29 years of my life believing that everyone shared my exact experience. So my husband at the time was at work. And first thing in the morning, I cornered him, and our conversation went like this. If I were to ask you where February is, what does that look like for you? I can tell you what it looked like. Confusion. He had no idea what I was talking about. And he said, do you mean like on the calendar? And I said, no. When you think about February, where is that for you? Jen, it's morning. Have you been into the wine already? I mean, it was a fair question. So I spent the next several minutes trying to convince him, February is right here. Come on, like, how do you not know? It's right there. Of course it's right here. But to no avail. He didn't care. He thought I was crazy. So I was happy. I went to work because at the time we didn't have a home computer, and all I wanted to do was research time-space synesthesia. So I get to my desk, and I'm excitedly typing time-space synesthesia into Google. And I can tell you, I was not prepared for what was about to happen. It is well established that synesthetes can experience adverse emotional reactions to stimuli that are inconsistent with their perceptual experience. And let me tell you, that is a fact. This is the first calendar that I saw that was not my own. And I'm going to explain to you how this went. Oh no! What is that? Both hands covering the monitor. I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't read it. It elicited such a profound feeling of anxiety that I'm surprised I didn't throw my monitor off the desk. So I quickly got out of images because I knew I wasn't ready to deal with this. And instead I decided I was just going to read about time-space synesthesia. And I came across a website, and they were hosting a study, and it was based out of the University of California at San Diego, run by some person called Ramachandran. I don't know if you've heard of him. I certainly hadn't at the time. So I sent an email describing my experience, and I never heard back. I did not discuss my synesthesia again for 7 years. It wasn't until I found myself back in university. I was in a course called Brain and Behavior taught by a neuroscientist called Dr. Neil Fournier. And it was under the supervision of Neil that I began researching synesthesia and its relationship to temporal lobe lability, but also when I started to think, okay, well, what does drive the superior autobiographical memory observed in time-space synesthetes? What was it about the way that I experienced the months of the year that allowed me to call up my memories so easily? So I started with thinking about where I go to call up my memories. You see, my memories are stored in the month in which they occurred. I have an extremely strong sense of how my body is physically related to that memory. And if I think about a significant event, I can see it in my calendar, and my body is pulled towards that month where it happened. So once I'm in the correct month, calling up the memory is kind of like filing through a filing cabinet. So one time, Dr. Fournier asked me to draw my calendar and to email it to him. And I was convinced that he was going to keep this calendar in his back pocket, and at some random time in the future, he was going to have me reproduce it on the spot to prove my synesthesia. So I thought, okay, this would be potentially easy for anyone, even a non-synesthete, to recall, to reproduce this calendar. So I did what any rational person would do, and I decided I was going to make a list of all my childhood friends' birth dates, parents' license plates, addresses, and home phone numbers, and give that to him as well, to prove my memory. So I began making my list. And when I got to my one friend, I'll call her Chris, I could remember her childhood address, I could remember her phone number, but her birthday was escaping me. So I did what I always do. I started in January, and I started scanning the months. Oh, it doesn't feel like she's here. March, no, I don't think she's here. I get behind me. Okay, July. I decided she's in July, and I don't go any further. So this is when I start filing. She didn't feel like she was at the start of the month. She didn't feel like she was in the middle of the month. When I got to the end of July, I thought, okay, this is where she belongs. But I still could not put an exact date to her birth. So I did what we all do when we want to remember somebody's birthday. I went on Facebook. And sure enough, her birthday was July 29th. So this brings me back to my central question. So what aids the superior memory in time-space synesthesia? So I started thinking about this theory of dual coding, the idea that nonverbal processing, like visual imagery, combined with visual processing equals our knowledge. However, there's a limit to how people process time visually, and it tends to be more verbal through the language that we use to discuss time. So does this combination of visual and verbal processing aid in memory retrieval? Returning to language for a moment. There is evidence that language can affect how we think about time and space, and although it's not likely that language completely shapes our thoughts, there is a growing body of evidence suggesting it can influence our thoughts, similar to the way that our environment and our culture can influence our language. Lyra Boroditsky a cognitive psychologist, has shown that English speakers tend to think of time along a horizontal line. And we talk about things as moving forward or moving backwards. I had to move the start date forward. I had to push the start date back. Additionally, in English and other European languages, we typically think of the past as being behind us and the future as being in front of us. And we use metaphors oftentimes to convey this idea. So there's no turning back now, or coming up in the weeks ahead. So despite using some of this language myself when speaking about time, this is inconsistent with how I experience time as a synesthete. Language does not influence my perception of time at all. You see, I don't go back in time to access my memories. Things didn't happen a long time ago. Something that happened in March of 2014 is as close to me as something that happened in March of 2024. What I'm trying to say is that if two events happened in the same month, irrespective of the time lapse between them, there is no difference in my perception of how long ago they occurred. Because I don't go back in time. I navigate to a place in my calendar, and the location never changes. For example, here are 3 very significant dates in my life that all happened in August. August 18th, 2012 was when I got married. Didn't work out so well. August 22nd, 1998, this was the date of my first concert. Pearl Jam, Molson Park and Barrie, Cheap Trick opened for them. I was in a mosh pit, I was 14, it was wild. And then August 24th, 2022, this was the day I tested positive for COVID first time. And that might not seem like a significant event, but I really thought it was going to be the end of me. So it is a very significant event for me. So you can see that they're all organized in August, and they're not organized chronologically, because that's not how my calendar works. My calendar works from front to back. This is the start of the month, this is the end of the month. 18, 22, 24. And when I think about these events, this is where I go to access these memories. And they all feel as close to me as when they first happened, and there is no difference in how I feel about being 14 in a mosh pit or being, well, however old I was at this time, not being able to get out of bed. So despite evidence supporting that language influences perception of time and space, I argue that this is not the case in time and sequence space synesthesia. Our memories, I believe, are chunked into the months in which they occur, and our ability to visualize these months aids in our recallability. There is no perception of going back in time or something happening a long time ago. If language influences perception, perhaps the way we speak about time and the past events negatively affects recall for people who are not synesthetes. If someone believes an event happened a long time ago or way back when, perhaps it is more difficult to retrieve that information. So these are ideas that are currently being tested, and I hope to contribute to the literature on this topic in the future. Thank you for your time and attention. Being here is an honor and a privilege. It is a memory that I will carry with me into the future, and it will feel as close to me in 20 years as it does today.
Questions from the audience?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do you think that you have to be a synesthete to see time in that way? People who want to improve their memories are often given sort of structures like that to think about. You may not know the answer to this, but if you're not synesthetic, might you still be able to learn to see time in that way? To bring those things that you think are way too far away? I mean, you probably can't answer this because that's not how you see it.
It's not how I see it, but I wonder if that is true because just like I said, when I thought, okay, well, anyone could reproduce this calendar with, you reproduce it and you study it, but I still don't know if there would be that relationship to where something occurred, because I'm really pulled towards where things occurred to me, and it's based exactly on where the month is. So even if we have the ability to recall what the calendar looks like, there is going to be that aspect missing. That would be my answer. That's how I feel.
There's a question over there.
Yeah, sorry.
Can I make a comment on that? One of the ways people are taught to remember better is called the method of loci, where you're taught to think of a place where something happened, and so you have an extra link. So I think it would not be visualized, but you could probably teach people as a memory trick.
Right.
I would have a short question. It was very, very clearly understandable, and I really can relate to it, how you were hit in the face when you first saw another depiction of a calendar in space. I can imagine when it happens the first time, that's what's happening. But now, with all the knowledge you've acquired and all the years you've already gone through it, how does it feel now when people share with you visualizations which do not all look like yours? I can tell you, yours does not look like mine. So have you gotten used to it that there is this variety and that there's not a single one which looks like another one?
I'm able to tolerate it better. I don't know that I'm used to it, but I will take the opportunity to try to read it and understand it. So there is a colleague of mine who is the chair of a department at the college that I teach at, and she is a time-space synesthete. And when she wanted to sit down with me to discuss, and I looked at her calendar, and it really took me a minute to compose myself before I agreed to go on with the conversation.
So I have a friend who's 96 years old. She's a composer. And when she composes, she talks about every time this has to be here, this has to be there, this. And all of a sudden I said, well, how do you see the days of the week and the months of the year? She's Scottish. So she said, well, of course they go like this. And I looked at her and I said, I think you have synesthesia. What? At 96.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible?
Oh, absolutely. Well, because we all assume that everyone shares our perception. We have no reason to assume that our perception is unique until you watch William Shatner's show at 11 o'clock at night and you have your mind blown by that. We have no reason to question that everyone doesn't experience it the same way.
Ronka?
First, thanks for your beautiful and very intriguing talk, first of all. And second, I find it fascinating that you physically turn around to look behind you, right? You make them physical.
I can do this.
movement.
I just
see
kind of,
it?
yes.
What happens if you look in a mirror? If you use a mirror to
I don't know. I've never done that. So I'm going to make my way to the bathroom shortly and see what that would look like. I don't know. I'll have to try. I can let you know.
Come back and tell us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was a very, very interesting presentation. I'm also a time-space synesthete, and in fact, that was my calendar. That
I'm sorry. It was so offensive to me.
And let me just say, yours looked quite odd to me. I'm wondering when you sort of have your calendar in your mind, and you might see, let's say you're thinking about this conference, and so you zoom in on May,
Yeah.
and then you see us all. Do you sort of get something that opens up and has an actual scene of the conference or whatever event you may be remembering, that you sort of start out on the square, the colored square, but then it kind of opens up into another scene of that memory?
Yes, so it looks like, I'm triggered by the memory, I go to the month, May's over here, of course. But then, so once I get to the conference, it looks like a movie. It looks like where a movie is unfolding in front of me, and it's very clear.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.